Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Yesterday's Eclipse not only captivated audience, but also had a big economic spin-off for southern parts of the region. We chat with some who've benefited. Plus, police suspensions across Ontario have cost taxpayers about $134 million over the past 11 years. CBC News has surveyed reports of hundreds of officers who were sent home with pay. And Chatham-Kent Council has agreed to explore tiny cabins to get a roof over the heads of vulnerable people. Yesterday's Eclipse putting a smile on many people's faces. That includes some of the business owners in the area, as thousands venture to the southern part of the region for the view of a lifetime. The CBC's Dale Molnar has that story.
Where are you coming from?
Macomb, Michigan.
Macomb, Michigan?
People drove for hours from across Ontario and even the U.S. to watch the eclipse in Essex County. Point Pelee even reached capacity early in the day. And with all of these people, it means an economic boost. Kingsville held a special event at the Grovedale Arts and Culture Center, drawing hundreds to the town.
Not only did the town have our own event, but, there's a number of businesses that had their own events. And, like Cindy's Garden, Grove Hotel, Auntie Aldu's, Pelee Island Winery, Greenheart Farms, Jack Miner Bird Sanctuary, they all were busy.
The Grove Hotel in Kingsville and the Grove Motel in Colchester were both full for the eclipse, giving them an economic shot in the arm.
Yeah, I would say just for this weekend, we probably saw an upwards of 50% bump, if not more, in terms of both locations, including the coffee shop. So we were extremely busy.
The Cured Craft Brewing Company isn't usually open on Mondays, but they had a special party that drew 100 people, and the owner says maybe some new customers.
I think so for sure. We had lots of people that said, oh, we're glad to know that this is in our area. And we are a relatively new business, so not everybody is aware that we are in existence, but word is definitely starting to spread, and lots of people said that they'll come back for sure.
She says if they didn't have a patio, they wouldn't have opened. But there were businesses in Kingsville that didn't open for the eclipse. She says that was a missed opportunity.
Maybe they're out enjoying it, right? So, you can understand the fact of people wanting enjoying a once in a lifetime, event.
There it is, Heather. You can hear everybody around us. It's just a gorgeous moment.
But Kingsville did get a lot of national exposure as part of the coverage of the eclipse, and Rogers says that was a plus.
Yeah, no, anytime we can get, the national spotlight on, Kingsville, we want to showcase. So, that was exciting.
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
I'm sure there are lots of us still reeling from that breathtaking view of the moon slipping in front of the sun. 11-year-old Ashton Mantha certainly is. He's been given the honorary title of Windsor Morning Solar System Enthusiast, and you'll quickly see why. They had him back on the show this morning for his reaction to yesterday's big event.
How was it?
It was amazing. When I saw it, I thought I was in an album cover, first of all. When the sun just completely went missing in like a second, it was awesome. It was like some weird mix of like the sun and complete darkness at the same time, and it was just like some fairy tale land type thing,
Was it what you expected? Was there any surprises to you?
I think it was better than I expected. There was like a sliver left, and I was like, come on, when is it gonna happen?
Right? Like that last moment as you're waiting for that last piece of the sliver to come feels like an eternity, but it moved so quickly at the same time.
I know. Everyone there was like, woo! It was awesome.
Where did you end up watching it in Kingsville?
We watched it at this place called Cindy's Home and Garden.
Oh, yeah.
It was a great place to watch it. If you happen to be alive in 2099, I suggest going there. Boy, do I feel bad for the people who didn't know this was happening. Like, I just imagine being someone driving to work, and then everything just goes black for a second. You'd think the world's ending.
Yesterday's total eclipse may have sent a chill down your spine, quite literally. Our video producer Mike Evans takes a look at how much the temperatures actually changed when the moon covered the sun.
The afternoon began at 17 degrees Celsius, 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyone who was there will tell you that it did get noticeably cooler while the moon crossed in front of the sun. People were able to see their breath. the thermometer dropping to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius. And we weren't even in totality yet. This fellow had the right idea. And then just like that, we were in totality, and the temperature continued to drop. The thermometer finally bottomed out at 52 degrees Fahrenheit, or 11 degrees Celsius. And towards the end, you can see that the temperature started to slowly climb back up again. There was a 6 degrees Celsius dip during the total eclipse.
Police departments across Canada routinely suspend officers who are accused of wrongdoing. Many of them are not paid, but that has only recently become the case in Ontario. A CBC investigation has found that over the past decade, more than 450 suspended officers continue to draw their salary at a cost of $134 million. Julie Ireton has more.
Former OPP officer Jason Redmond spent nearly 8 years on paid suspension after multiple convictions over the years, including drug trafficking and sexual assault. The constable was finally fired last summer. By then, he had already taken home more than $1.2 million in pay. Details of this Brockville case triggered public outrage. But it's just one of more than 450 cases of suspended officers CBC News found through publicly available data in Ontario. Officers were suspended with pay for a variety of allegations, everything from drunk driving to fraud, manslaughter, sexual assault, and intimate partner violence or disciplinary violations. The total cost, more than $134 million since 2013. The longest, most costly suspension is OPP Detective Sergeant James Christie. He's a former police union executive, suspended for 9 years and counting. Christie has been paid more than $1.5 million to stay home from work.
Most police officers are working professionally and doing their jobs properly, but we see these cases, and these are the cases that really, anger people and piss people off.
Since 2010, Ontario police chiefs have lobbied for the ability to suspend accused officers without pay. It's a power other police forces in Canada, including the RCMP, have had for years.
Our legislation will, if passed, provide transparency and clarity to police officers.
The Ford government said it would bring in reform 4 years ago. New legislation finally came into effect this month. But the new suspension without pay provision only applies in certain very serious criminal cases, and only after the approval of a hearing.
To be honest with you, not a lot.
Former Niagara Chief Jeff McGuire doesn't think it will make much of a difference in terms of fewer suspensions with pay.
There are still many opportunities that we believe a person should likely be suspended without pay.
By contrast, the police union is satisfied with the new provisions.
No agency or government department keeps track or makes public the number of police suspensions in Ontario. Critics say that leaves the public in the dark in terms of the scope of suspensions and their outcomes. Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Communities across Canada are always looking for solutions to tackle a growing problem, homelessness. In Chatham-Kent, they're now exploring tiny cabins to get a roof over the heads of more people. It's called the Emergency Transitional Cabin Program, and last night, Council agreed to move forward with the plan, paving the way for 50 of those cabins to be built on municipal land on Park Street.
This isn't a solution. They're not going to be living in these long term. Mm-hmm. The goal is this is just going to replace what exists right now at Victoria Park Place. So they will have a place to go that's safe and warm, that they could have a pet or their spouse, that they have a little bit of autonomy, and yet everything they need for support-wise is close at hand. But it's only until housing is found. So, and that housing is, we have a less than 1% vacancy rate in Chatham-Kent. Like there are no places to go. Even if you could afford the crazy rent, there just isn't any available. So that's going to be the next problem.
Colette, I thought we lucked out with the weather yesterday so we could see the eclipse, but today was something else.
Yeah, it feels like it just gets better and better, right?
It does. It was gorgeous. There were so many people down by the river fishing and on the boats, and it was lovely.
Yeah, and not only lovely, but record-setting heat, perhaps.
Ooh,
yes.
okay.
Well, let's just kind of walk you through this. Well, normal highs for this time of year, 12 and 2, so we were way ahead of that. But the record high from 1945, which had been holding for quite some time, was 22.8. Yeah, that one got broken, but actually just a couple of years ago in 2021 when it went to 22.9. But never mind that, because today, yes, we actually did do it. Not only close, but for 2024, that's the new record for this date for Windsor with 23.2. So it's interesting to look at what the record low is, just to give you an idea of how cool it actually can get at this time of year. We don't want to think too much about that, though, when we've had such a lovely day. The reading's still holding. I mean, look at Goderich, totally different scenario. Yes, because of a few things. One, the lake, the wind off the lake, but also because of some storms that have been rolling in across Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. So we are seeing some of those winds picking up with that cold front that's passing by, still that southwesterly flow, some of the gusts getting in some cases even over 50 kilometers an hour along that front. You see you have a gap in some of that activity, but do be aware there are still more storms to the south. Now, they're generally tracking to the northeast at about 60 to 65 kilometers an hour, so may just kind of tag towards Point Pelee, parts of Chatham-Kent along the lakeshore, but there could still be a little more development along that front. So not out of the question that we get a rumble of thunder or have a few cells going through, where most of the active weather and the strong cells have actually been around Georgian Bay, and some hail profiles I've seen in here, maybe loony to up to Toonie size hail, winds exceeding 80 kilometers an hour. So just south of Owen Sound there, that is a severe thunderstorm warning, and the rest of the area in a watch. So yes, still some active weather this evening, but once that front goes through, it really clears our skies out and sets us up for another nice day tomorrow, at least most of the day. And what I mean by that is we will have sun, and then it won't be till late afternoon we get some increase in cloudiness, and then overnight Wednesday into Thursday this next system moves in, kind of a juicy one. So I do see not just some rain, but at times some moderate rain that will be passing through our skies. So contending with that overnight Wednesday to Thursday, and really lingering towards Friday as well. Tonight, though, with clearing skies, 8 degrees, 19 for tomorrow. The breeze may feel slightly cooler, especially if you're closer to the lakeshore towards the river. But here we go. After that 19, with the wet weather moving in, we do get that temperature finally coming down by about Friday. Notice the overnight lows are pretty mild, though, through here. And towards the weekend, there's a chance of showers coming back in, Meg, but not as wet as it's going to be just towards the end of the week.
All right. Looks like a nice day tomorrow. Thanks for that, Colette.
Yes, for sure. You're welcome.
Are you looking to add a little vegetation to your property? The City of Windsor is accepting tree planting requests. Residents can apply for trees to be planted on municipally owned portions of their properties.
So part of our projects is to make sure that these different parts of the cities that may have less trees get new trees, basically to sort of even up things. That's one factor that we consider. So the second factor is interest from our residents. So when people call us in and say, oh, I want a tree, or I would like to see trees in this particular roadways, in this particular part of the city and so on, we consider those particular factors.
The city will evaluate your property and surrounding neighborhood to make sure it's a good place to plant and receive water. The city's forester says tree equity across the city is strongly considered. The trees are planted twice a year in Windsor, totaling for about 3,000, and that application process is online. Microbreweries in the area usually get their malt from out west, but one local barley grower is trying to change that. He's just finished his first batch. The CBC's Amy Dodge met with him at his Guesto Malt House.
We have to rotate this 4 times a day. So basically, you just take the shovel, turn it over. And this is after day 4. And this is where the barley is fully modified with the roots on it. It's in here for 24 hours in the kiln. Okay, so we dry it in here. It's wet when it comes out of there, and you grabbed it, it was wet to the touch. When we dry it, we stop modification. Okay, and we dry it down to 4%. So we start, it's a 3-cycle process over 24 hours. So once the barley has been dried in the kiln, and that's after 24 hours, then we have to physically shovel it out the back through that auger there that goes up into that tank there. That tank stays there. We can either store it in that tank or we can run it down through the gate in the bottom to the debearder. Debearder knocks the roots off. So then you end up with roots and barley that go up that auger into this tank. This tank then drops into a cleaner where the roots and the barley are sieved out. So they're separated that way. So then the finish, just the barley itself, goes out the bottom of that cleaner and it goes up that leg up there, drops in that tank, and then we put it into that for our bagger right there.
Coming up, parents of a teen school shooter in Michigan have been sentenced to at least 10 years for manslaughter. We have all the details on that story happening right across the border. The parents of a Michigan school shooter have been sentenced up to 15 years in prison for failing to prevent the deadly attack in 2021. Their son Ethan Crumbly killed 4 fellow students using a gun his parents had purchased for him.
Mr. Crumbly, it's clear to this court that because of you, there was unfettered access to a gun or guns, as well as ammunition in your home.
James and Jennifer Crumbly were both convicted earlier of involuntary manslaughter in connection with the shooting. They were found grossly negligent and failing to address their son's growing mental health issues, and they bought him a gun that he used in the 2021 attack. Families shared emotional victim impact statements. The Crumbleys expressed sorrow but said they had no idea their son was capable of killing. Ethan Crumbly pleaded guilty in 2022 to the shootings and was sentenced to life in prison. It's the first case in the U.S. where parents have been tried for a shooting carried out by their child. A CBC News investigation has uncovered a Canadian DNA laboratory that knowingly delivered prenatal paternity test results that routinely identified the wrong biological fathers. The bad results were delivered around the world for years by the unregulated lab. CBC's Jorge Barrera has the story.
Coral Mayer was 19 when an unplanned pregnancy changed her life with a complication that made everything harder.
Here's something that is humiliating, but I don't know the father of my child.
She turned to Toronto lab Vigard Acumetrics for a prenatal paternity test, but the company got the results wrong. After the baby was born, another lab named the right father.
I'm very bitter towards the whole situation, honestly. Like, there's so much I could have avoided if I hadn't have gone through that.
CBC News sent a producer inside the lab with a hidden camera to find out more.
At least with this, it sounds like the accuracy is there, because with the prenatal...
Prenatal, it was never that accurate, and it's expensive. It's a couple $1,000s for a test.
The owner, Harvey Tenenbaum, said he stopped selling prenatal paternity tests because they couldn't be trusted to identify the right dad.
We're literally at that test now. It's pretty good, but pretty good is not good enough.
He said sometimes the tests were proven wrong right at the birth.
Test the white guy and the baby came out black. Right? I said, what the hell's going on here?
Experts say prenatal paternity tests are very accurate when done right, but a CBC News investigation has found multiple cases where Vigard named the wrong dad. These stories span a decade, from Canada to the UK, the United States to Australia.
Vigard Acumetrics.
Private commercial DNA labs like Vigard don't need a license to operate, and Health Canada doesn't regulate them. This public policy expert says that's a problem.
We need to protect the public. You can't underestimate the impact that results like this have on individuals.
Dr. Harvey Tenenbaum, how are you? I'm Jorge Barrera. Tenenbaum didn't respond to multiple interview requests. When CBC News approached him outside his lab, Tenenbaum said mistakes happen.
You know, you do thousands of tests.
Yeah, but...
And half the errors are the collection problem.
Because I know that you knew these tests were flawed, but you still kept selling
No,
them.
the tests were never flawed. The tests are accurate.
We had a hidden camera, and we spoke to you about this, and you said you knew that they were wrong. Vigard stopped selling its prenatal paternity tests sometime in 2021.
The main thing I want for Vigard is for it to close down. I don't think anyone would even imagine that it would still be open.
It's still open and doing other types of DNA business. Jorge Barrera, CBC News, Ottawa.
Coming up, a municipality in the GTA will start fining people at car rallies. Stay tuned. It's not uncommon for car enthusiasts in Windsor to gather in parking lots or car dealerships, but up the 401 in Vaughan, the city is bringing in new bylaws to crack down on car rallies. The changes mean spectators or people whose vehicles are at a rally are subject to fines. The CBC's Chris Glover has more.
You're probably looking more closer to 400 or 500 vehicles here.
York Regional Police chopper footage of car rallies that police have been saying for years are illegal and dangerous.
There too. We've got pedestrians now rocking the car and they're doing a bit of a burnout here.
Thousands of people out there. And heaven forbid somebody gets struck by a vehicle and we end up in a situation where we have a fatal incident. That's why this is a significant public safety issue.
The police chief says his officers can respond, but at a cost.
We are pulling resources away from where we might need them most. If our chopper is involved in managing a car rally, if we have a carjacking over here, our chopper's not available. That has an impact on how we respond to all of these calls.
So today, he, along with the mayor of Vaughan and members of council, announced new powers to crack down.
Your free ride is over. You are not welcome here. Your behavior is not welcome here.
New changes in the city to the noise bylaw and the special events bylaw. A major change, even spectators and vehicle owners not part of the dangerous action can face penalties.
Whether you're not even physically there, but a vehicle that you own is actually at the car rally, you potentially could face serious monetary penalties.
Penalties now range from $500 for spectating all the way up to $10,000 for those involved. The police chief says it's been an escalating problem. Since 2001, there have been more than 500 car rallies in York Region, more than 60% of them in Vaughan. Like one in this parking lot near Weston Road and Highway 7 just last month, an unauthorized car rally with more than 100 people where a teen girl was shot but survived.
So, we're trying to get ahead of that, and these tools and these resources and new laws or bylaws that we stand up to actually shut them down in the first place go a significant way to actually moving them right out of our region.
The chief wants the new powers across the region.
They kind of cracked down on this a number of years ago, and so our incidents have gone down quite significantly. There isn't as much street racing.
But the mayor of Markham says the situation in his city has improved, and he wants to look at the details of the bylaws before promising any changes, especially around the spectator issue.
I know residents in our city and certainly in many other municipalities, they always expect us to have that magic wand. And most of the time, some of these aspects of certain bylaws are more challenging in the courts than they may seem on the surface. So certainly open to looking at it all.
But for now, York Regional Police is satisfied starting with Vaughan to try to get the upper hand in the city where they face the most car rallies. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.